Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. At Benning's training grounds, Kevin Hale observed his special operations trainees finishing the final exercise of the day. At 45, his face was marked by decades of deployments, but his eyes remained keen, catching every detail as the soldiers navigated the obstacle course. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez approached with a clipboard. "Looking sharp out there, sir. This might be your best class yet." Kevin nodded, a quiet pride rising in his chest. After 23 years in the military, training elite units wasn't just his duty, it was his legacy. "They're getting there, Rodriguez," he replied. "Let's see how they handle the night op tomorrow." His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. Genevieve had sent a photo of herself and Celeste at their favorite cafe in Columbus. His wife's golden hair shimmered in the sunlight, and his stepdaughter's law books were spread across the table. The image warmed his heart. At 45, he had everything he ever wanted. Rodriguez chuckled. "Family time, sir? Just to check in," Kevin said, replying quickly. "Looking beautiful, ladies. Save me a scone, Genevieve." The next morning, Kevin attended a mandatory session at the base's cybersecurity training center. The session was led by Nicholas Wilkerson, a blunt former NSA specialist. "Your personal devices are your biggest vulnerability," Nicholas said as he paced. "One careless sync, one automatic backup, and your private life is exposed." Kevin sat in the back row, laptop open. Though older than most of the officers, he stayed current. He led by example. "I'm going to demonstrate a common vulnerability," Nicholas continued, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Connect your phones using the outline steps. This will show how easily data can be compromised." Kevin's screen, used as an example, was suddenly projected onto the main display. A synced message thread filled the screen. "Genevieve, just got back from Dr. C. Everything looks good with the baby. Uncle Jonas is thrilled. Celeste, Mom, wrong chat. Delete it quick. Genevieve, oh God, I'm sorry. Kevin's in training all day, right? Celeste, yes, but be careful. We need to use the other app for these conversations." Silence fell across the room. Kevin stared at the screen, struggling to comprehend. Around him, officers shifted uneasily. Nicholas cleared his throat. "Let's take 5, he said, his voice distant. Kevin's hands trembled slightly as he took a screenshot, instinct overriding emotion. Secure the data. Assess. Plan. Execute. But this wasn't a mission. It was his life, and it was crumbling in front of 24 officers. Captain Saran, who had once served under him in Afghanistan, stepped forward. "Sir, do you need?" "I'm fine, Captain." Kevin cut her off, his voice calm despite the storm raging in his chest. "Just a misunderstanding, I'm sure." But even as the words left his mouth, his mind was racing, replaying months, even years, of small red flags. The late-night phone calls Genevieve insisted were from her sister. The frequent trips to Atlanta, she said, were for shopping. Celeste's nervous glances, her sudden silences around him. As the other officers filed out for their break, Nicholas lingered. "Kevin," he said quietly, "I've seen a lot of digital footprints in my NSA days. That message thread? It's not the first of its kind." Kevin looked up at him. Nicholas's expression wasn't sympathetic, it was professional. He recognized a breach. "Can you help me?" Kevin asked, voice low. Nicholas glanced toward the door, ensuring they were alone. "There's someone you should talk to. Russ Park. Used to be in military intelligence. Went private. Here's his number." He scribbled it on a scrap of paper. "He's discreet, thorough, and he understands how this world works." Kevin folded the paper and slid it into his pocket. His training kicked in, strategy already taking shape. Jonas Carlson, Uncle Jonas, as Genevieve always called him, came to mind. The longtime family friend, the lawyer whose firm specialized in military family cases, the man with connections to Colonel Byrd Alvarado, marriage ties that made him practically untouchable in their circle. "One more thing," Nicholas added, pulling a small device from his briefcase. "Use this burner for anything sensitive. Assume your phone and email are compromised. If they've kept this quiet, they've likely covered their tracks elsewhere." The rest of the training session passed in a blur. Kevin kept his composure, relying on years of operational discipline to suppress the emotional upheaval. He even managed to ask pointed questions about cyber vulnerabilities, mentally cataloging every detail that might prove useful. That evening, instead of heading straight home, Kevin detoured to a quiet park, one he and Genevieve used to frequent on Sunday afternoons. Sitting in his car, he pulled out the burner phone and dialed the number Nicholas had given him. "Park Investigations," a gravelly voice answered. "Mr. Park, my name is Kevin Hale. Nicholas Wilkerson suggested I contact you." A pause. "Oh, Nick said you might call. Military matter? Personal?" with military complications. Those are usually the messiest, Park said. Tomorrow, 7 a.m., Waffle House on Victory Drive. Come alone. Pay in cash. No phones. Kevin agreed and ended the call, staring at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The man staring back wasn't just a betrayed husband. He was a special operations trainer, a man who'd spent his life uncovering threats others couldn't see. Now he'd turn those same skills inward. He would find the truth, no matter what it cost. Later that night, as he finally drove home, he readied himself to face Genevieve and Celeste. He would pretend nothing had changed, that he hadn't seen the messages that tore his life apart. Because now, he was embarking on the most personal covert mission of his life, investigating his own family. At dawn, the Waffle House on Victory Drive loomed like a bunker glowing yellow against the morning haze. Kevin arrived 10 minutes early, choosing a booth with a clear view of every exit. Old habits never die. He ordered a black coffee and waited. Russ Park wasn't what he'd expected. Dressed in a crisp button-down and wire-rimmed glasses, he looked more like an accountant than a former intel man. But Kevin recognized the signs. How Park subtly scanned the room, clocked every face. "Your coffee's awful," Park muttered as he waved off the waitress. "Now tell me why I'm here at this god-awful hour." Kevin slid his phone across the table, showing the screenshot from the previous day's training session. Park studied it closely, his expression calm. "Jonas Carlson," Kevin said quietly. "My wife's childhood friend. He's also Colonel Bert Alvarado's brother-in-law. His law firm handles legal work for half the officers on base." Park pulled out a small notebook. "The military connection complicates things. How deep does this go?" "That's what I need to find out," Kevin said, leaning in. "Financial records, phone logs, travel history, whatever it takes." "It'll be expensive," Park warned. "And messy. Military communities are close-knit. One misstep, and it could blow back on your career." "Money's not a problem," Kevin replied, sliding an envelope across the table. "That's your first installment. Just find the truth." Park tucked the envelope into his coat without counting it. "Give me 2 weeks. And Kevin," he added, eyes narrowing, "don't do anything reckless. Keep things normal. These operations demand patience." The next 2 weeks tested Kevin's discipline. He stuck to his usual routine training exercises, staff meetings, dinners with Genevieve. But he watched her differently now. The way she always kept her phone face down. How she took calls in the garden. Her smile, too rehearsed to feel genuine. Celeste came by for Sunday dinner. She blamed law school for her preoccupation, but Kevin noticed how tense she was, how she constantly checked her phone, and how quickly she deflected any mention of Jonas or his firm. On the 15th day, Park called from a blocked number. "Coffee. Same place. 1 hour." This time, Park brought a thick folder with him. "You might want something stronger than coffee for this," he said, ordering 2 plates of eggs to avoid interruptions. The evidence was damning. During Kevin's deployment 2 years ago, Genevieve had been admitted to Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta under an alias. The attending physician, Dr. Lorraine Cook, had a known history of arranging private adoptions for wealthy clients. "Here's where it gets interesting," Park said, spreading out financial documents. 3 days after the birth, a baby boy was adopted by Fiona Keene in Tennessee. She's Jonah's cousin, runs a high-profile charitable foundation that receives significant donations from military families. Kevin's grip tightened around his coffee cup. "The Military Family Support Alliance," Park continued. "Looks legitimate on the surface, but I traced the money, large transfers between accounts, ultimately landing offshore. Cayman Islands." "Show me everything," Kevin said. For the next 2 hours, they went through the evidence. Bank statements showed Genevieve receiving regular payments through shell companies. Travel records placed her in Atlanta monthly, aligning with foundation board meetings. Phone logs revealed hundreds of calls between Genevieve, Jonas, and Fiona Keene. "There's more," Park said, hesitating. "Your stepdaughter's internship at Hargrove International? Arranged personally by Jonas. Lucas Hargrove sits on the foundation's board." Kevin thought of Celeste's rapid rise, her luxury apartment, the new car. It was all starting to form a clear picture. "What do you recommend?" he asked, keeping his military instincts sharp, focusing on the plan instead of the emotion. "You'll need a team," Park replied, closing the folder. "This goes beyond a family issue. We're looking at possible fraud, money laundering, maybe worse. I have a contact, Maddie Solomon, a forensic accountant. She flagged suspicious activity at the foundation last year before they pushed her out." "Set up a meeting," Kevin said. "And keep digging. I want names, everyone connected to this." As Kevin drove home that evening, his mind raced with the weight of what he now knew and what he still had to uncover. Jonas wasn't just Genevieve's lover, he was the mastermind behind a much larger scheme, one built on the trust of military families and designed to construct an empire of deceit. At home, Genevieve was in the kitchen, humming softly as she stirred a pot of pasta sauce. You're late, she said, kissing Kevin on the cheek. Everything okay at the base? Just fine, Kevin replied, forcing a smile. How was your day? Oh, the usual. Book club, then lunch with the colonel's wife, she said casually. Jonas might stop by later, he's got some paperwork for you to sign. That investment we discussed. Kevin watched her lie with ease, wondering how many signs he had missed over the years. Actually, I've got an early morning tomorrow. The papers can wait. If you're sure. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it automatically. Oh, Celeste can't make it to dinner. Big case at the firm. Of course, Kevin said, each word bitter in his mouth. She's been so busy lately. That night, lying beside his sleeping wife, Kevin made a decision. This was no longer just about betrayal. Somewhere in Tennessee, a 2-year-old boy carried his DNA. Around that child was a web of manipulation targeting trusted military families. He reached for his burner phone and texted Park. Set up the meeting with Solomon. Time to expand the operation. The meeting with Maddie Solomon took place in an underground parking garage in downtown Columbus, the kind of place that might have felt overly dramatic if Kevin hadn't already uncovered so much hidden beneath the surface. Maddie, a sharp-eyed forensic accountant with steely gray hair, extended her hand. Mr. Hale, I figured it was only a matter of time before someone came asking about the foundation. They moved to her car, a nondescript sedan with tinted windows. Park was in the back seat, quietly keeping watch on the entrance. Show him, Park instructed. Maddie opened her laptop and brought up spreadsheets detailing years of financial activity. The foundation looks legitimate on paper, she explained. And it does provide real help to military families. That's what makes it the perfect cover. She pointed to a highlighted section. But here regular payments to 12 military spouses, including Genevieve, all masked as charitable disbursements. The amounts varied, but the pattern was clear, consistent monthly deposits following foundation events or board meetings. Kevin studied the numbers, his training helping him spot the underlying structure. These spouses, he said, what do they have in common? Access, Maddie replied. Their partners hold high-level positions, command roles, intelligence, procurement. The foundation isn't just shifting money, it's buying influence. Park leaned forward. Tell him about the internship program. Maddie brought up another file. The foundation runs a prestigious internship initiative for military family members. Your stepdaughter's position at Hargrove International? She's one of 20 similar placements, all in companies connected to military or defense contracts. Lucas Hargrove, Kevin said quietly. Jonas arranged Celeste's internship. Hargrove's firm handles millions in defense contracts, Maddie confirmed. And Jonas' law firm manages all the legal work. It's a closed loop. The foundation identifies families with access, offers help through charity or opportunity, and then extracts information or leverage. Kevin felt the weight of it all pressing in. The baby. My son. Why involve Fiona Keene? Leverage, Park answered. A secret adoption through shady channels, that's insurance. Fiona's foundation isn't just a front for money laundering. It's a vault of secrets. Everyone involved has something to lose if the whole thing comes down. Maddie nodded. I've found evidence of at least 3 other private adoptions arranged through the same network, all military families, all handled with extreme discretion. And all that information flows through Jonas' law firm. That's why they targeted your family, Park added. Your role as a special operations trainer, your connections at Fort Benning, you're valuable to them. Genevieve's pregnancy wasn't just chance. It was a calculated opportunity. Kevin began pacing the tight space of the parking garage. We need more bank records, adoption files, everything you can find on Fiona Keene's operation. Already working on it, Maddie said. But Kevin, be careful. When I started digging into the foundation's finances, I got a generous severance package and a very clear message. These people protect their own. They count on military loyalty, Park noted. The code of silence. The brotherhood. They exploit that. Kevin thought of his trainees, the values he drilled into them. Honor, integrity, sacrifice. This wasn't just a personal betrayal. It was a betrayal of everything the military community stood for. There's something else, Maddie said, pulling out another document. Celeste isn't just covering for her mother. Look at her foundation responsibilities. The paper detailed Celeste's role in client relations. She wasn't just an intern. She was actively identifying wealthy military families, scouting potential targets for the foundation's schemes. My stepdaughter, Kevin said quietly, is recruiting for them. She's good at it, Park added. Young, attractive, from a respected military family, she's got credibility. And her job at Hargrove gives her access to sensitive defense contract information. Kevin took in this final betrayal. His mind, trained for strategy, was already shifting from revelation to action. We need to move carefully. This isn't just about exposing a scandal. We're dealing with careers, reputations, entire lives that could be destroyed. I've seen this kind of thing before, Park said, leaning against the car. It starts small. A favor here, a secret there. Before long, everyone's compromised. So where do we begin? Kevin asked. Maddie shut her laptop with a firm snap. Follow the money. The foundation's next big fundraiser is in 3 weeks. All the major players will be there. Jonas, Fiona, the spouses tied to the scheme. Genevieve, Kevin said, jaw tightening. She never misses a foundation event. It's not just the events, Maddie continued, opening another file. There are monthly board meetings in Atlanta. Genevieve attends as a community liaison, but look at the expense reports. She highlighted several entries: hotel stays, upscale dinners, all billed to the foundation. Always the same pattern, Park confirmed. Same hotel, every time. The Georgian Terrace. Always booked under the foundation's name. Officially, it's for charitable planning. Just then, Kevin's burner phone lit up. A message from Genevieve. Working late with the foundation committee. Don't wait up. Love you. She's with him now, isn't she? Kevin asked, though he already knew. Park nodded grimly. They've been at the Capital City Club for the past hour. Officially a foundation dinner. Kevin stared at the phone, his voice calm, his expression unreadable, years of discipline holding him steady. Show me everything you have on Celeste. Every meeting, every document, every tie to Hargrove International. Maddie spread more papers across the hood of the car. She's smart, uses her law school background to gain trust. Here's a list of her recent targets. All military families with high-level clearances or considerable wealth. The list made Kevin's blood run cold. He recognized many of the names: officers he had personally trained, families he'd welcomed into his own home. She's been gathering intel on them, Park said, and feeding it back to Jonas' network. The foundation uses it to tailor their approach. They know which families are vulnerable, which ones have secrets worth exploiting. But why? Kevin demanded. Money laundering alone doesn't explain this level of coordination. Maddie exchanged a tense glance with Park before answering. We think the foundation is only a front. The military ties, the classified info they're accessing, it's worth far more than money. Someone's building a web of influence inside the military community. Kevin thought back on all the training sessions he'd conducted, the sensitive material he'd handled. Had Genevieve been extracting intel from him all along? Were his private conversations being reported straight to Jonas and his associates? I want surveillance on all of them, he said firmly. Genevieve, Jonas, Celeste, everyone involved. It's already in place, Park replied. But Kevin, you need to maintain your cover. Any sudden change could tip them off. I've spent my life training others for covert ops, Kevin said quietly. It's time I ran one myself. As they packed up the files, Maddie handed him one last document. This came to my office yesterday, a financial transfer from the foundation to a new Cayman Islands account. $5 million. Authorized by Jonas and Fiona. They're moving money, Park noted. Something big is coming. Kevin slipped the document into his jacket. Then we'd better be ready. Set up secure communications, no more loose ends. From now on, we operate like a covert mission. Compartmentalized intel, scheduled check-ins, contingency protocols. That night, as Kevin drove home, his military instincts took over. He wasn't just a betrayed husband anymore, he was an operator, embedded deep in enemy territory, working to bring down a network that had wormed its way into the core of the military world. Every dinner with Genevieve, every chat with Celeste, every interaction in their social circle was now part of his counterintelligence effort. His phone buzzed with a message from Genevieve. On my way home. Picked up your favorite wine. Love you. Kevin allowed himself a grim smile. Two could play this game. Let them believe he was still fooled. He would bide his time, gather the evidence, and build his case. The foundation, Jonas' firm, Hargrove International, every last thread of their operation would unravel. He typed back. Message received. Can't wait to hear about your evening. Sitting in the dark of his car, Kevin reviewed his mental checklist. Park would manage surveillance. Maddie would trace the money. He would play the devoted husband while quietly working to expose the truth. The coming weeks would be a test not just of his training, but of everything he believed about love, loyalty, and betrayal. Late October rain drummed steadily against the windows of his office at Fort Benning. It had been 3 weeks since his meeting with Maddie Solomon, and each day since had peeled back more layers of the foundation's reach. He stared at the latest surveillance photos Park had sent. Genevieve entering the Georgian Terrace Hotel, followed 20 minutes later by Jonas Carlson. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Captain Saran stood in the doorway, the same officer who had first witnessed the revealing message during cybersecurity training. Sir, there's someone here to see you, says it's urgent. Captain Sabrina's tone carried more weight than her words. She's waiting in the visitor's lot. Asked specifically not to come inside. Kevin instinctively checked his sidearm. Name? Yvette Carrington. The name struck him like a punch. Jonas Carlson's wife. He'd seen her countless times at Foundation events, laughing, smiling, completely unaware, or pretending to be, while her husband wove his web of lies. "Thank you, Captain. I'll take it from here." The visitor's lot was nearly empty, save for a black Mercedes with tinted windows. As Kevin approached, the back door opened and Yvette Carrington stepped out. She wasn't alone. A tall, sharply dressed woman with a keen gaze emerged from the driver's seat. "Kevin," Yvette said, her voice trembling slightly. "This is Dina Hammond. She used to work for Jonah's firm. We need to talk." "Not here," Kevin replied, scanning the area. "Follow me." He led them to a quiet diner off base, one he'd frequented for years with Genevieve. The familiar setting felt tainted now. They slid into a booth in the back corner, the waitress giving Kevin a nod of recognition. "I know what you've been investigating," Yvette began, her hands wrapped tightly around a coffee cup. "The foundation. Jonas. Genevieve." Dina placed a thick manila envelope on the table. "I was a paralegal at Carlson and Associates for 6 years. Last spring, I found discrepancies, client accounts with irregular transfers, military family cases with strange settlements. They paid you off," Kevin said flatly. $500,000 and a bulletproof NDA. Her laugh was bitter. "I took it. Moved to Savannah. Tried to forget. Then Yvette found me." Yvette pulled out her phone, her hand shaking. "I wasn't supposed to be at the doctor's that day. Jonas thought I was in Atlanta for a foundation event. But I saw her, Kevin. Genevieve. She's pregnant again." The words hung between them like a cloud of smoke. Kevin kept his face composed, even as his mind began calculating. "For months along," Yvette said. "But 5 months ago, Jonas had been with her in Colorado. He's not even bothering to cover it anymore," she said softly. Dina opened the envelope, spreading the contents across the table. "These are copies of what I found. Jonas has been using military family cases to collect intelligence, personal details, financial info, security clearance levels. Anything with value. The foundation's just a front," Yvette added. "They prey on vulnerable families, offer legal help through Jonas' firm, then use that access for leverage. The donations? They're bribes. Payments to keep people quiet." Kevin studied the documents, absorbing each detail with a soldier's precision. "Why now?" he asked, eyes still on the files. Yvette's composure cracked. "Because I'm done. Last week, I overheard Jonas on a call with Lucas Hargrove. They're planning something big, something that could destroy lives. I can't stay silent anymore. The NDA won't protect them from federal fraud charges," Dina added. "And I still have allies at the firm. They alert me when certain files are accessed. Jonas has no idea we're here." Kevin's phone buzzed Park's scheduled check-in. He ignored it. "Coming here was a risk," he said quietly. "For both of you." "We were careful," Dina assured him. "We know how to stay off the radar." Yvette reached across the table, her fingers brushing his arm. "There's one more thing you need to know about Celeste." Kevin's jaw tightened. His stepdaughter had been distant lately, claiming her workload at Hargrove International had intensified. "She's not just an intern," Yvette explained. "Jonas has been grooming her for years. The law school letters, the high-profile internship, it was all orchestrated. She has access to military families through you, through the foundation. She's the perfect asset. Young, smart, from a respected military background," Dina added. "No one would ever suspect her." The diner's fluorescent lighting suddenly felt too harsh, the booth too confining. Kevin thought back to every conversation Celeste had ever initiated about his work, about his colleagues. Had it all been calculated? "I need proof," he said at last. "Everything you have on Jonas, the firm, the foundation, everything." Dina tapped the manila envelope. "It's all in there. Bank records, client files, foundation documentation." But Kevin, her gaze locked with his. "Be careful. These people don't just ruin reputations. They destroy lives." Yvette glanced at her watch. "We should go. Jonas has a board meeting tonight, but he'll notice if I'm gone too long." As they stood, she slipped a key into Kevin's hand. "Lake House, Old River Road. No cameras, no phones. It's safe, no ties to Jonas or the foundation." Kevin watched them drive away, the envelope now a weight in his jacket. The rain had stopped, but the air still crackled with tension like the seconds before a storm. His phone buzzed again, first Park, then Maddie. Both wanted updates, but he needed time to absorb it all. His wife pregnant with another man's child. His stepdaughter an active player in the scheme. And now, 2 unexpected allies offering him a way to dismantle it all. He drove slowly back to base, thoughts already forming a battle plan. This was no longer just about personal betrayal. With federal fraud and exploitation of military families involved, they had the beginnings of a case that could bring down an entire network. In his office, Kevin secured the documents in his safe and made 3 calls. The first was to Park to arrange surveillance on the lake house. The second to Maddie, she'd want to dive into the financials. And the third to Captain Sabrina Chan. "Sabrina," he said when she answered, "remember that cybersecurity training where this all began? I need your help." The lake house on Old River Road became their operations center. Kevin sat at a weathered oak table, surrounded by his rapidly assembled team. Russ Park stood near the fireplace, his usual crisp uniform replaced by tactical gear. Maddie Solomon had taken over one wall, plastering it with financial diagrams and transaction records. The Foundation's network is more far-reaching than we thought, she said, pointing at a detailed flowchart. They've got ties to every major military base in the Southeast. This isn't just intelligence gathering, they're cultivating influence. We need more than money trails, Park said. If we're going after players this powerful, we need airtight evidence of criminal acts. Kevin turned to the newest team members. Ignacio Russell, a military prosecutor known for exposing corrupt officers, scanned the documents. We're looking at financial fraud, exploitation of service families, possible national security breaches. This isn't a local case anymore. The digital trail is deep, said Dina Hansen, the cybersecurity expert Sabrina had brought in. I've been monitoring their communications. They're using encrypted channels, but they've gotten sloppy. They think no one's watching. Clifford Bird, a former JAG officer with graying hair and a steady demeanor, lifted one of the files. These alone show a consistent pattern of malpractice, he said. But it's the military ties that elevate it to a federal matter. They're not just exploiting families, they're potentially compromising operational security, Kevin said, rising and moving to the window. Outside, the lake shimmered in the afternoon sun, deceptively calm. Walk me through what we know. Maddie stepped forward, her precision as a forensic accountant evident in her measured delivery. The Foundation identifies vulnerable military families through Jonas Law Firm. They offer assistance, legal support, financial aid, career opportunities. But once those families are in debt to them, the real operation begins. Information gathering, Park added. They collect everything: personal secrets, financial records, base operations, deployment schedules, anything they can use. At least a dozen cases show them leveraging sensitive information, Ignacio said, reviewing a set of documents. It's blackmail, plain and simple. Dina tapped at her laptop. Their digital footprint is revealing. They use a mix of legitimate Foundation emails and encrypted messages. The ones that look like routine updates, charitable donations, event planning, are actually coded reports on intel collection. And Celeste? Kevin asked, the name still heavy on his tongue. She's their star recruiter, Clifford confirmed. Young, connected, and above suspicion. Her role at Hargrove International gives her access to defense contract intel, and her military family background opens doors most can't. Kevin took it all in, his tactical instincts kicking in. We need to coordinate. Dina, stay on their communications. Maddie, keep following the money. Ignacio, build the legal case. What about surveillance? Park asked. They're starting to get suspicious. Genevieve's been asking about your late nights. Let her, Kevin replied. In fact, let's give them something to notice. Dina, can you fabricate a digital trail? Make it look like I'm working on a classified assignment? She nodded with a grin. Already started. I've planted Trace's late-night logins to secure servers, encrypted messages to phantom contacts. They'll find exactly what we want them to find. Just be careful, Clifford cautioned. These people are powerful. One misstep could blow everything. That's why we need leverage, Ignacio said. Something big enough to make them slip up. Kevin turned to the team. The Foundation has a fundraiser next month. All the main players will be there: Jonas, Fiona, Lucas Hargrove. Genevieve's even on the planning committee. A perfect setup, Park said. But evidence won't be enough. We need them to incriminate themselves. They're already doing it, Dina reported, turning her screen toward the group. Look, communications between Jonas and Hargrove. They're planning something: moving money, drafting documents. They think they're untouchable. That's their weakness, Maddie said. Their arrogance. They believe their military ties shield them. They're getting sloppy. Kevin examined recent surveillance photos: Genevieve entering Jonas' office, Celeste meeting with Lucas, Fiona making late-night visits to Foundation HQ. Here's what we do, he said. We let them believe I'm developing something classified, something valuable enough to draw them in. I can go further, Dina offered. I'll make it look like you're creating a new training protocol, one that could unlock access to every special operations unit in the country. Perfect, Ignacio said. They'll want that badly enough to take chances. Meanwhile, Maddie added, I'll keep tracking the money. They're getting ready for something big. We need to know what it is. Kevin walked over to the evidence wall, studying the tangled web of connections. Park, I want surveillance on all of them: every meeting, every call, every message. Already in place, Park assured him. They're not nearly as cautious as they think. Clifford, prepare the legal groundwork. When this breaks, I want everything ready for federal prosecution. The former JAG officer gave a grim nod. I'll coordinate quietly with my contacts at the Justice Department. As the team dispersed to their assignments, Kevin remained by the window, watching the sun dip below the lake's horizon. Somewhere in Atlanta, his wife was likely with Jonas, orchestrating their next move. His stepdaughter, using her position to collect intelligence on military families. And here he was coordinating their downfall. One more thing, he called out. Everything we discuss stays in this room. No phones, no computers, no outside contact. We operate like a covert mission, compartmentalized, need to know only. The team nodded, fully aware of the stakes. This wasn't just about rooting out corruption, it was about safeguarding the lives of military families who had been used, coerced, and betrayed. As night fell, Kevin reviewed their progress. The components were in place: financial tracking, digital surveillance, legal prep. All they needed now was the right moment, the perfect chance to bring down the entire network. His phone buzzed. A message from Genevieve. Foundation fundraiser planning meeting tomorrow. Don't wait up. Kevin allowed himself a cold smile. They thought they were in control, watching, pulling strings. They had no idea they were the ones under surveillance. The Foundation's annual fundraiser had transformed the Columbus Convention Center into a glittering tribute to military philanthropy. Crystal chandeliers bathed the navy-draped tables in warm light as decorated officers mingled with wealthy donors. Kevin adjusted his bow tie, scanning the room as the players took their positions. Genevieve moved gracefully through the crowd in a silver gown, the picture of a supportive military spouse and dedicated board member. Jonas Carlson worked the room with polished ease, his success on full display in his tailored tuxedo and self-assured charm. Fiona Keene held court near the stage, basking in praise for her philanthropic efforts, while Lucas Hargrove stood beside her, nodding in approval. Everything's in place, Kevin murmured into his champagne glass. Dina's voice came through his nearly invisible earpiece. Digital trail's hot. They've been accessing your classified files all week. Jonas and Hargrove held 3 late-night meetings about it. They're consolidating funds, Maddie added from the surveillance hub in a nearby hotel. Large transfers coming in from their Cayman accounts. Kevin weaved through the crowd with practiced ease. He'd spent weeks laying the bait, alluding to a revolutionary new training program, something promising unprecedented access to special operations protocols and personnel data. It had proven irresistible. Heads up, Park's voice warned. Your wife, 2 o'clock. Genevieve appeared at his side, her perfume instantly familiar. Darling, you've been so busy lately, she said sweetly. The board keeps saying how grateful they are for your commitment to the military community. Kevin returned her smile, reading the calculation behind her warmth. Just doing my part. In fact, I've got a special announcement to make later. He saw her interest sharpen instantly. Oh, you didn't mention anything. I've been keeping it quiet. A little surprise for the Foundation. He watched her eyes flick toward Jonas, who pretended not to be watching. The trap was working. Celeste here, Park reported. Talking to Hargrove at the bar. Kevin turned slightly, catching sight of his stepdaughter in a sleek black dress, speaking intimately with Lucas. Once, he might have seen a young attorney seizing a networking opportunity. Now, he saw the calculated finesse of intelligence gathering. They're moving, Dina reported. Spike in encrypted traffic on their secure channels. They were talking about your project. As the evening unfolded exactly as planned, Kevin moved through the crowd, dropping carefully crafted hints about his classified project. He caught Jonas and Hargrove exchanging meaningful looks, noticed Fiona Keene making a discreet phone call, and observed Genevieve's growing focus on his every word. Financial alerts pinged and Maddie announced, they're tapping into emergency funds. Large transfers from the Cayman accounts. Clifford, positioned in the mobile command center, confirmed the legal team was on standby. As dinner wrapped up, Kevin approached the stage. The trap was set, every player perfectly placed. Taking the microphone, he scanned the room filled with military families, some innocent, some complicit, all about to witness the unveiling of a sophisticated criminal operation. Distinguished guests, he began. I have an announcement. The Foundation has done incredible work supporting our military community. That's why I've decided to make a substantial donation. The room's attention sharpened. Jonas and Fiona exchanged quick glances. Genevieve smiled brightly but tapped nervously on the tablecloth. After praising the Foundation's efforts, Kevin continued, I'm not just donating funds, I'm offering something even more valuable. Access to our new special operations training protocols. A murmur swept through the crowd. Lucas Hargrove leaned forward, his usual poker face slipping to reveal intense interest. The program I've developed, Kevin explained, triggering the presentation screen behind him, represents years of military expertise, training methods, personnel assessments, operational guidelines, everything the Foundation needs to expand its support for military families. He clicked through slides layered with carefully balanced information, just enough truth to be believable, just enough classified markings to be irresistible. Through his earpiece, Dina's satisfied whisper came. They're accessing the digital files now. multiple attempts to penetrate the secure sections. Jonas Carlson raised his glass. A remarkable gesture, Kevin. The Foundation would be honored to. I'm not finished, Kevin's voice cut through sharply. Before we proceed, we need to talk about how the Foundation really uses its resources, the offshore accounts, the surveillance operations, the exploitation of military families. The room fell utterly silent. Fiona Keene's face paled. Genevieve's champagne glass slipped from her fingers and shattered. I know everything, Kevin continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. The baby born 2 years ago at Piedmont Hospital. The payments to military spouses for intelligence gathering. The manipulation of legal cases through Carlson and Associates. Jonas took a step forward but halted as the ballroom doors opened. An elegant woman in an evening gown entered, someone who had been quietly attending Foundation events for months, a wealthy military widow. Federal Agent Harrison, she announced, her badge gleaming beneath the chandeliers. I believe we have some matters to discuss. Chaos erupted. Fiona Keene's phone crashed to the floor as she scrambled to delete files. Lucas Hargrove attempted to slip out the side door, but found Park waiting. Celeste, pale-faced, gripped the edge of her table. The Foundation's accounts have been frozen, Maddie's voice reported through the earpiece. They're trying to access the Cayman transfers, but it's all locked down. Genevieve rose slowly, her silver dress shimmering in the light. Kevin, she whispered, you don't understand. We were helping people. The Foundation was stealing from those who trusted you. He replied quietly. Kevin concluded, exploiting their secrets, their weaknesses, and their trust in the military community. Agent Harrison's team moved swiftly through the crowd, detaining key figures. Jonas Carlson's usual polished confidence faltered as he was read his rights. Fiona Keene broke down, crying over the children they claimed to help, while Lucas Hargrove insisted on calling his lawyer. Kevin observed it all from the stage, his military training helping him stay composed. Through his earpiece, he heard his team coordinating with federal agents securing evidence, making sure nothing could be erased or destroyed. Celeste approached the stage, tears streaming down her face. Dad, she said the name she hadn't used in months I never meant. I didn't know at first. We'll talk later, Kevin replied quietly. Right now, you need to cooperate with Agent Harrison. The intricate trap had been perfectly sprung, every player caught, every piece of evidence secured, every escape route blocked. Watching federal agents escort Jonas and Genevieve to separate vehicles, Kevin felt no triumph, only a profound sadness for the trust shattered, the lives manipulated, the bonds betrayed. Agent Harrison appeared at his side. Clean operation, she remarked professionally. Your team's intelligence was flawless. We have enough evidence to dismantle this entire network. Kevin nodded, watching the last of the stunned guests being questioned by federal agents. The chandeliers still sparkled, the tables still gleamed with fine china, but the illusion of charity had been destroyed beyond repair. Your wife, Harrison said cautiously, she's asking to speak with you. Not tonight, Kevin answered. Tonight, we focus on securing everything they tried to conceal. The real work is just beginning. Through his earpiece, he heard his team continuing their tasks, Dina tracing digital footprints, Maddie following the money trail, Park safeguarding physical evidence. The trap hadn't merely exposed corruption, it had captured every detail, every link, every betrayal. The complex operation was complete, but Kevin knew this was only the start of a long journey. Looking out over the chaos of the raided fundraiser, he thought of all the military families who'd been exploited, all the trust violated, all the damage that lay ahead to fix. The night air was cool as he finally stepped outside, watching federal agents load the final pieces of evidence into secure vehicles. His team's voices still crackled through his earpiece, but for a moment, he allowed himself to feel the full weight of what they had achieved and what it had cost. The morning after the Foundation raid dawned cold and gray over Fort Benning. Television trucks clogged the base entrance, their satellite dishes stretching skyward like metal flowers. Inside his office, Kevin watched CNN replay footage of Jonas Carlson and Fiona Keene being led away in handcuffs. Military charity scandal rocks Fort Benning. The headline scrolled across the screen. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the story broke. Colonel Bert Alvarado had already called 3 times, his messages growing more frantic as his brother-in-law's corruption became public. A knock at the door revealed Captain Sabrina Chan, her usual sharp demeanor softened by concern. Sir, the FBI forensic team needs access to the Foundation office on base. Give them whatever they require. Kevin's voice was rough from a sleepless night. Thank you, Sabrina. She nodded, understanding passing between them. Her quick thinking during that cybersecurity training had sparked the entire investigation. The military community is stunned, she said quietly. No one saw this coming, Kevin replied. Well, almost no one. She managed a small smile. Kevin's computer chimed with a new email, an urgent message from the base commander requesting his presence at an emergency briefing. As he gathered his materials, his office phone rang again, this time Genevieve's lawyer. The military police parted the sea of reporters as Kevin made his way to headquarters. The normally busy corridors were eerily quiet, officers and enlisted personnel speaking in hushed tones. The briefing room was packed with senior staff when Kevin arrived. Colonel Mercer, the base commander, stood at the podium, his expression serious. "The FBI has confirmed our worst fears," Mercer began without hesitation. The Foundation wasn't just laundering money, they were collecting classified information. Every military family they supported was carefully chosen for their access to sensitive data. Agent Ara Harrison stepped forward, her federal badge shining under the fluorescent lights. "We've seized the Foundation's servers. The extent of their intelligence gathering is significant. They had files on deployment schedules, base security protocols, personnel assignments, anything that could be valuable to interested parties. How did we miss this?" Major Thompson demanded from the back. "They operated right under our noses," Kevin answered, standing. "They exploited the very values we hold dear: trust, loyalty, taking care of our own. They twisted everything that makes our military community strong." Harrison nodded. "Mr. Hale is correct. Jonas Carlson's law firm was the perfect cover. Military families trusted him with their legal problems, their personal affairs. Every piece of information was cataloged and stored." The briefing continued as Harrison detailed the investigation's findings. Lucas Hargrove's firm had been raided at dawn, computers seized, contracts frozen pending federal review. Fiona's Foundation offices across 3 states were being searched simultaneously. "And Genevieve Conley?" Colonel Mercer asked, glancing at Kevin. "She's in federal custody," Harrison replied. "She claims limited knowledge, but the evidence says otherwise. Dr. Lorraine Cook has agreed to cooperate, providing detailed records of the secret birth and subsequent adoption." Kevin felt all eyes shift to him. These were his colleagues. His military family. Some had attended his wedding to Genevieve, watched Celeste grow up, contributed to the Foundation's so-called charitable work. "There's more," Harrison continued. "We've identified at least 15 other military spouses receiving regular payments through the Foundation. Each had access to sensitive information through their partner's position." The room buzzed with angry murmurs. Kevin recognized names on the list: people he trusted, families he'd helped, colleagues he'd recommended to Jonas's firm. "The Foundation's financial records are a maze," Harrison explained, displaying complex charts of transactions. "They used legitimate charity as a cover, but every genuine act of aid came with strings attached: information gathering, surveillance, compromise." Colonel Mercer cleared his throat. "And Celeste Stone, from Hargrove International? She's cooperating," Kevin said quietly, explaining how they identified and targeted vulnerable families. The briefing went on for another 2 hours as they outlined the scandal's immediate fallout: security protocols needing review, clearances reevaluation, families to be notified. The military community's trust had been shattered, and rebuilding it would take time. As the room emptied, Harrison held Kevin back. "There's something else you should know. The FBI's forensic accountants found something in Fiona's private records. It concerns the child. Your son." Kevin's jaw tightened. "What about him?" "He has a rare medical condition. Fiona has been using Foundation funds to cover specialized treatments. That's part of why she agreed to the adoption. They needed someone with access to substantial resources." The information struck Kevin like a physical blow. Somewhere in Tennessee, a 2-year-old boy sharing his DNA was battling an illness he knew nothing about. Harrison continued gently, "The treatments are costly. With the Foundation's assets frozen," Kevin interrupted quietly, "I'll take care of it. The child shouldn't suffer for their crimes." Later that afternoon, Kevin sat in his office, staring at the framed photos he had removed from his desk: his wedding day, family picnics at the lake, Celeste's law school graduation. Each memory now felt tainted, blurred by questions of what had been real and what had been carefully crafted deception. His secure phone buzzed with a message from Maddie Solomon. More financial records had been uncovered, revealing years of systematic exploitation. The Foundation's legitimate charitable work had been meticulously designed to cover their intelligence-gathering operations. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Dr. Lorraine Cook stood in the doorway, clutching her medical bag like a shield. "I brought the records," she said without hesitation. "Everything about the birth, the adoption, everything. You deserve to know the truth." Kevin gestured to a chair, bracing himself for yet another layer of betrayal to be unveiled. Outside his window, the base continued its daily routines, but nothing would ever be the same. The Foundation's downfall had exposed not only a criminal network, but the fragile nature of trust itself. The private medical facility outside Nashville gleamed in the autumn sunlight, its sleek, modern design standing in stark contrast to the rolling Tennessee hills. Kevin sat in his rental car. Dr. Cook's medical records spread across the passenger seat. Pages of test results, treatment plans, and progress notes told the story of a little boy's battle with a rare genetic disorder. Fiona Keene's assistant, Robbie Rivers, had reached out through federal channels after learning about Kevin's anonymous efforts to continue the child's care. Now, sitting in the hospital parking lot, Kevin struggled with the burden of decisions made by others that had shaped so many lives. His phone buzzed with an update from Agent Harrison. The FBI's forensic team had uncovered that Fiona's foundation had funneled over $2 million to this facility in the last 2 years, all disguised as general charitable medical support. A tap on his window startled him. Robbie Rivers stood there, his thin face drawn with worry. Kevin hadn't expected him to come in person. "Mr. Hale," Robbie said as Kevin stepped out of the car. "Thank you for coming and for making sure the treatments continued." They walked toward the building, Robbie breaking the awkward silence with nervous chatter. "He's doing well, all things considered. The doctors are optimistic about the new protocol. Fiona made sure he received the best care whatever else she did wrong." The pediatric wing was bright with cheerful murals and gentle music. Through an observation window, Kevin saw a small boy with his mother's golden hair and his own determined jaw, focused intently on a puzzle while a nurse adjusted his IV. "That's Mercer," Robbie said softly. Fiona had registered him as Mercer Keene, determined that he would never know the truth about his birth. She thought she was protecting him. Kevin watched his son, a child he had never held, never known existed, until the investigation methodically sorting puzzle pieces. "Tell me about his condition," Kevin said. Robbie pulled out a thick file. "It's called Hurler syndrome, a rare genetic disorder affecting multiple organs. Without treatment." He swallowed hard. Fiona discovered this during the adoption process. That's when she began diverting foundation funds for his care. "Why are you telling me this?" Kevin asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Because Fiona isn't a monster," Robbie replied. "She did terrible things, help Jonas and the others exploit people's trust, but everything she did, every dollar she stole, every secret she kept, was for him, to make sure he got the treatments he needed." Kevin thought about the tangled web of lies they had uncovered. She could have asked for help. Legitimate help. Pride, Robbie said simply, and fear. Once you start down that path of secrets and lies, she thought she could handle it on her own. By the time she realized how deep she was in Jonas' operation, it was too late. A doctor approached the observation window, making notes on Mercer's chart. The boy looked up and smiled brightly, a smile that hit Kevin like a physical blow. It was Genevieve's smile, the real one he had fallen in love with years ago, before the deception began. "The new treatment protocol is promising," Robbie continued, "but expensive." When the foundation's assets were frozen, Fiona was terrified the treatments would stop. "That's why I reached out," Robbie said. "She doesn't know I'm here." "The trust is already set up," Kevin assured him. "Anonymous, ironclad. The medical bills will be covered." Relief visibly softened Robbie's shoulders. "You're a better person than any of us deserve, Mr. Hale. After everything they did to you." "He's an innocent child," Kevin cut him off firmly. "Whatever else happened, whatever crimes were committed, he shouldn't suffer for it." They watched Mercer focus on his puzzle for a few more minutes. A nurse came in to bring medication, and Kevin noticed the gentle care in her movements. She truly cared for her patient, seeing him as a child to protect, not a secret to hide. "There's something else," Robbie said hesitantly. "After I saw what you did setting up the trust, I have information about the foundation's activities, things Fiona told me, records she kept separate from the main files." Kevin turned to study Robbie's face. "Why come forward now?" "Because you showed mercy when you had every right to be vengeful. The FBI has most of it, but there are details only I know: how they chose their targets, how they used the information they gathered. I want to make it right." As they walked back to the parking lot, Kevin's phone buzzed again. Agent Harrison was updating him on new evidence, more arrests, the widening investigation, but his mind remained in that hospital room, watching a little boy with his jawline and Genevieve's smile fight a battle he never knew about. "Mr. Rivers," Kevin said as they reached his car, "thank you for letting me know about him, for coming forward." Robbie nodded, understanding the complicated feelings beneath those simple words. "He's a fighter, you know. The doctors say he gets stronger every day." Kevin drove back to his hotel in silence, the weight of the day settling heavily on him. His son would grow up never knowing him, and maybe that was for the best, but he would have the care he needed, the chance to face his battles with all the resources Kevin could provide. That evening, Kevin sat in his hotel room updating his team. Maddie Solomon was tracing the new financial leads Robbie had provided. Park coordinated with FBI surveillance teams. The investigation continued to expand. But for Kevin, something had shifted. The anger that had driven him since uncovering Genevieve's messages had softened, replaced by the image of a small boy solving puzzles in a hospital room. His phone chimed with a text from Agent Harrison. Rivers's information checks out. More evidence of the Foundation's targeting methods. Want to meet to discuss? Kevin stared at the message for a long moment before replying. Tomorrow. Tonight, I need to process some things. He pulled out Dr. Cook's records again, reading through the medical history of a child who shared his DNA but would never call him father. Amidst the tangled web of lies and betrayal, an act of mercy had sparked a small light of truth. It wasn't redemption, nothing could excuse what they'd done, but it was something real in a world built on carefully crafted deception. The federal courthouse in Atlanta buzzed with tension as Kevin passed through security. 6 months had passed since the Foundation raid, and today marked the beginning of the end. The prosecution was set to present its final arguments in what the media had dubbed the military trust trials. Inside the courtroom, the players and their elaborate lies sat in neat rows, now transformed by justice into defendants. Jonas Carlson's expensive suit couldn't hide his exhaustion. Fiona Keene clutched a handkerchief, her Foundation's charitable facade long since shattered. Lucas Hargrove stared straight ahead, his corporate arrogance finally broken after months of federal scrutiny. Genevieve sat apart from the others, her designer clothes replaced by modest business attire. She didn't meet Kevin's gaze as he took his seat, but he noticed her hands tremble slightly as she arranged her notes. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Andrea Martinez, stood to address the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 6 months you've heard extensive testimony about the systematic exploitation of military families. Today, we will review the key evidence that proves beyond doubt the defendant's guilt in this complex conspiracy. Martinez moved with practiced precision, displaying documents on the courtroom screens. Bank records revealed an intricate web of financial transactions. Surveillance photos captured clandestine meetings. Email trails exposed the careful targeting of military families for exploitation. The Foundation, Martinez continued, presented itself as a charitable organization dedicated to supporting military families. In reality, it was a sophisticated intelligence-gathering operation. Every act of charity came at a hidden cost: the extraction of sensitive information from vulnerable families. Kevin watched the jury's reactions as Martinez detailed how Jonas's law firm had served as the perfect cover, gaining access to military families' most intimate problems and secrets. How Lucas Hargrove's company provided corporate legitimacy while facilitating international connections. How Fiona's foundation laundered millions while maintaining a veneer of respectability. And perhaps most disturbing, Martinez's voice carried clearly throughout the courtroom, the calculated use of personal relationships. Genevieve Conley, whose marriage to a respected special operations trainer granted access to classified information. Celeste Stone, whose position was exploited to identify and take advantage of wealthy military families. Genevieve flinched at the mention of her name, but kept her eyes fixed forward. Her lawyer had negotiated a plea deal in exchange for her testimony about the Foundation's operations. Celeste, facing her own legal consequences, had cooperated fully with federal prosecutors. The defense attorneys presented their closing arguments, attempting to portray their clients as misguided philanthropists rather than calculated criminals. Jonas's lawyer emphasized his years of legal service to military families. Fiona's attorney spoke passionately about the Foundation's legitimate charitable work, carefully avoiding mention of the millions laundered through offshore accounts. During a brief recess, Kevin stepped into the hallway. Agent Harrison approached, dressed formally for court, a stark contrast to her undercover days, posing as a wealthy widow. "The jury's engaged," she commented. Martinez did an excellent job laying out the complexity of their operation. Kevin nodded. "Any word on the additional indictments?" 3 more military spouses were arrested this morning. The Foundation's network continued to expand, with every new piece of evidence uncovering more connections. Back in the courtroom, the proceedings moved forward with impactful statements from military families who had been exploited. Colonel Mercer spoke about the damage done to base security, while other officers described how their trust had been betrayed and their sensitive information compromised. Finally, it was Kevin's turn to testify. He approached the witness stand, feeling the heavy responsibility of his community's trust. Martinez guided him through his discovery of the deception, his investigation, and the eventual dismantling of the network and the child involved. When Martinez asked carefully if Mercer was being cared for, Kevin replied simply that they had agreed to keep Mercer's medical condition private, protecting at least this one piece of innocence in the entire tangled affair. When the verdicts were delivered, they were decisive. Jonas and Fiona faced federal charges for fraud and money laundering. Lucas Hargrove's firm collapsed under scrutiny, and its government contracts were canceled. Genevieve's plea deal resulted in a lighter sentence, but her reputation within the military community was permanently damaged. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for statements. Kevin watched from a distance as justice was served. Though the story would fade from the news cycle, its impact on the military community would endure. His phone buzzed with a text from Robbie Rivers. Mercer's latest test showed improvement. The new treatment was working a small victory amid the broader pursuit of justice. Kevin pocketed his phone as Agent Harrison approached. There will be appeals, she warned. Cases this complex always have. Let them appeal, Kevin replied firmly. The evidence is solid. The truth has a way of lasting. In the months that followed, the military community began a slow process of healing. Kevin found unexpected support in Yvette Carrington, who had lost her own marriage in the scandal. Over coffee at their regular diner, she approached him with an idea. We need to rebuild trust, she said. Create something genuine from all this deception, a real foundation that actually helps military families affected by fraud. Kevin considered the proposal. It would require time and resources. I've already spoken with several legitimate donors, Yvette continued. They want to make this right. And Dina Hansen has offered to oversee all the cybersecurity protocols. The mention of Dina brought a slight smile to Kevin's face. The cybersecurity expert had become a steady presence in his life. Their shared experience in exposing the truth had created a bond growing stronger every day. We could do it right this time, Dina added as she joined them with her laptop. Complete transparency, regular audits, real support for military families. The military community's response surprised them all. Officers who had lost faith in charitable organizations stepped forward to help families victimized by the original foundation, offering their experience to prevent future fraud. Kevin's exposure of the corruption earned him respect across the military establishment. The base commander recommended him for a promotion to oversee ethical training programs, turning his experience into a teaching tool for future officers. Your story, Colonel Mercer told him during the ceremony, will serve as a cautionary tale at every military base in the country, not just about corruption, but about the courage to expose it. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings continued to unfold. Jonas and Fiona faced years in federal prison. Genevieve's plea deal resulted in a shorter sentence, but the damage to her reputation was permanent. Celeste's involvement led to her dismissal before her career could truly begin. One morning, nearly a year after the verdicts, Kevin sat in his new office at the Military Ethics Training Center. The walls were adorned with commendations recognizing his role in exposing the corruption, but his gaze lingered on a different photo, one of his new team at the legitimate foundation they had established. He pictured coordinating outreach programs, and Dina implementing security protocols designed to protect rather than exploit. That morning, a letter arrived, its handwriting achingly familiar. It was from Celeste, writing from her mother's old lake house where she had retreated after the scandal. Dear Dad, it began. I've spent months searching for the right words to explain, to apologize, to make sense of my own choices. The truth is, I lost myself in their web of lies. I became someone I never thought I could be, someone who betrayed not just you, but everything you taught me about honor and integrity. Kevin read the letter twice, feeling the heavy weight of years of deception and the faint possibility of redemption. After careful thought, he wrote back, the truth isn't just about exposing lies, it's about confronting them and learning from them. When you're ready to do that, we can talk. He sealed the envelope, knowing that healing would take time. The scandal had cost him his marriage and stepdaughter, but it had also given him something more precious, a renewed sense of purpose, a stronger moral compass, and a genuine family forged in the fires of truth and justice. That evening, as he left the office, Dina waited by her car, ready for the foundation board meeting. Kevin nodded, falling into step beside her. Together, they walked toward a future built on truth rather than deception, their shared commitment to protecting military families stronger than any elaborate lie left behind. The Military Ethics Training Center stood as a testament to lessons learned and trust rebuilt. On his desk, beside Celeste's letter, lay a report from Mercer's doctors in Tennessee, a small victory in a story that had found meaning through its pain. The story of the Foundation's corruption would be taught at military bases for years to come, but so would the story of its aftermath, how truth, once revealed, could light the way toward redemption and renewal. 5 years later, at the Military Ethics Training Center at Fort Benning, Kevin Hale, now 50, studied his reflection in the office window. The years had silvered his temples, but his posture remained straight and military, and his eyes sharp with purpose. Colonel Hale, your 4 o'clock is here, his assistant's voice crackled over the intercom. Kevin straightened his jacket, his fingers brushing the silver eagles on his shoulders, a promotion earned through unwavering dedication, to reforming military institutional integrity. Send them in. The door opened to reveal a group of fresh-faced officers, tablets in hand. His course on ethical leadership had become mandatory for all incoming command staff, with the Foundation scandal serving as the central case study. Today, he began, we're going to discuss how trust becomes a weapon when placed in the wrong hands. As he spoke, his eyes drifted to the wall of framed news clippings behind his desk, chronicling the aftermath of the scandal that had shaken the military community to its core. Federal sentences had been upheld for those involved in military foundation fraud. Jonas Carlson, pictured being led from the courthouse, his once immaculate suit replaced by prison orange. Jonas had been sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for fraud, money laundering, and exploiting military families. His appeals had been exhausted, and his legal empire dismantled. Recent reports indicated that Jonas Carlson had aged decades in just 5 years, his charm completely eroded by the harsh realities of prison life. Fiona Keene had fared somewhat better. Her cooperation and disclosure of Mercer medical care earned her a reduced sentence of 8 years. Though she still had 3 years remaining, her model prisoner behavior might shorten that further. Kevin clicked to the next slide, revealing the Foundation's intricate web of deception. The exploitation wasn't just financial, he explained to his focused audience. It was emotional, professional, and personal. After class, he packed up his materials, his thoughts drifting to the latest letter from Genevieve. She had served 4 years before being released to a halfway house in Miami, far from the military community she once betrayed. Her efforts to rebuild her life were burdened by the heavy weight of her past decisions. No one trusted her enough to offer meaningful employment, and her reputation remained an unrelenting shadow. The second baby, Eva, whom Genevieve had discovered, had been given up for adoption immediately after birth. Genevieve had relinquished all parental rights as part of another plea bargain. Kevin sometimes wondered about that child, too, but he had come to accept the limits of his responsibility. His phone buzzed with a text from Dina Hansen, now Dina Hale. Their relationship had grown naturally from shared values and experiences, blossoming into marriage 2 years after the trials. Her cybersecurity expertise had revolutionized the military's approach to information protection, with her protocols becoming standard across all branches. The meeting ran late. Dinner at 7 o'clock. Celeste's flight arrives at 6 o'clock, the text read. Kevin smiled, recalling the long road to reconciliation with his stepdaughter. After her career-ending disgrace, Celeste had spent 2 years in intensive therapy, confronting the choices that led her to betray her own values. She had eventually found purpose teaching ethics at a community college in Oregon, using her story as a cautionary lesson on the seductive power of corruption. On the drive home, Kevin passed the old Foundation building, now home to the Military Family Support Initiative, the legitimate organization he and Yvette had built from the ashes of the scandal. Yvette Carrington had transformed her pain into purpose, serving as its executive director. Her deep understanding of how charitable organizations could be corrupted made her fiercely committed to transparency. Stopped at a red light, Kevin checked his secure email. The quarterly report from Mercer's trust had arrived. His biological son, now 7, was thriving under ongoing medical care. Kevin had never met him in person, maintaining his distance out of respect for the boy's adoptive family, but he made sure Mercer always had the support he needed. At the house they shared on a quiet street, an American flag proudly flying outside, Kevin found Dina in their home office, surrounded by screens displaying her latest security protocols. "How's the new firewall implementation going?" he asked, kissing her cheek. "The Fort Bragg system is fully upgraded. No one's getting through this one," she replied. Her expression softened. "Ready to see Celeste. She's bringing her new boyfriend, another teacher." Apparently, their relationship was unexpected, but it feels right. Dina's analytical mind complemented Kevin's strategic thinking, and her quiet strength matched his sense of duty. Together, they had built something genuine from the wreckage of deception. The sound of wheels on the driveway announced Celeste's arrival. She stepped out of the taxi, looking professional yet relaxed, her years of therapy and self-discovery evident in her confident posture. Behind her, a man with kind eyes carried their bags. "Dad," she called out, no longer with guilt in her voice. They had worked hard to rebuild their relationship, spending countless hours in family therapy and learning how both had been manipulated by Jonas' network. Over dinner, Kevin observed his rebuilt family, Celeste and her boyfriend, chatting about their teaching careers, Dina sharing her latest cybersecurity innovations, and all of them exchanging stories about their work protecting and educating others. His phone buzzed with a message from Russ Park, who had turned his role in exposing the Foundation into a thriving consulting business helping organizations detect internal fraud. "Did you see the news? Jonas denied parole again." Later that evening, After their guests had settled into the guest room, Kevin sat in his study reviewing files for the next day's ethics class. A photo on his desk showed his extended family at last year's Christmas gathering: Dina, Celeste, Yvette, and her new husband, even Sabrina Chan, now a lieutenant colonel herself. Another frame held a letter from Robbie Rivers, updating him on the legitimate charitable foundation he now led in Tennessee. He had taken the lessons learned from Fiona's deception and transformed them into genuine service, his organization becoming a model of transparency and ethical operation. Kevin opened his laptop to add notes to tomorrow's lecture. The cursor blinked over the title: Trust, Truth, and Transformation, Rebuilding After Betrayal. The military community had not just survived the scandal, it had evolved, implementing stricter oversight, stronger protections for vulnerable families, and enhanced ethical training. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Celeste stood in the doorway, looking young in her old college sweatshirt. "Can't sleep," she said. "Too many memories in this town." "Good memories now, too," he replied, motioning toward the chair across from his desk. She sat down, nervously fiddling with her class ring, the one she'd earned teaching instead of practicing law. "I saw Mom last month," she admitted, "in Miami." Kevin waited patiently, letting her find the words. "She's different, working at a small bookstore, living in a tiny apartment. Says she's finally understanding the damage she caused." Celeste met his eyes and asked about him, about Dina. "I told her. You're happy. Are you?" he asked softly. "Happy." Her smile was genuine. "Getting there. Teaching helps, using my story to show others how easy it is to lose your way, and how hard but important it is to find it again." Through his window, Kevin could see the stars over Georgia, the same stars that had witnessed the unraveling of his first marriage and the careful rebuilding of his new life. The foundation scandal had cost him his original family, but it had given him something far more valuable: an unshakable understanding of truth's power to both destroy and heal. Another email awaited in his inbox. The Military Ethics Training Center was expanding, opening branches at bases across the country. His case study on the foundation scandal would be required reading for a new generation of officers, teaching them to recognize the subtle ways trust could be weaponized. Lucas Hargrove, whose corporate empire had been destroyed by the scandal, had tried to rebuild in Europe but found his reputation followed him. Now living in obscurity, his name served as a cautionary tale in business ethics courses. The military families affected by the foundation's schemes had mostly recovered, their resilience bolstered by new support systems and protective protocols. The community had learned crucial lessons about verifying charitable organizations and safeguarding sensitive information. Kevin returned to his lesson plans, adding notes about the long-term impact of ethical decisions. Tomorrow, he would stand before another group of officers, sharing not just a story of betrayal, but the even more important story of rebuilding. Dana appeared in the doorway, 2 cups of tea in hand. "Coming to bed soon?" she asked. Kevin saved his work, reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. The pain of betrayal had faded, replaced by a quiet satisfaction living authentically and helping others navigate their own ethical challenges. "Just finishing up," he replied, accepting the tea. Its warmth reminded him of all the late-night conversations that had helped heal old wounds with Dina, with Celeste, and with his military colleagues. As they prepared for bed, Kevin thought of Genevieve in her small Miami bookstore, Jonas in his prison cell, and Fiona counting down the days left in her sentence. Their choices had cost them everything: power, wealth, influence they had once sought, while teaching others the true value of integrity. The next morning would bring new challenges: more officers to train, more protocols to implement, more lives to influence. But for now, in the quiet of his rebuilt life, Kevin Hale understood that the greatest victory wasn't simply exposing the foundation's corruption. It was proving that truth, however painful, could illuminate the path forward. On his nightstand, a framed photo captured his favorite moment, not from his past life, but the day he was promoted to colonel, surrounded by the family and friends who had helped him turn betrayal into purpose. Behind the frame lay Celeste's latest letter, its closing lines perfectly capturing their shared journey. "Sometimes the truth costs us everything we thought we wanted, only to give us everything we truly needed." Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.